Alright folks, today we're going to be doing the extrapolation lab on old and new pennies. This is reviewing some of the skills you're expected to know and will need for possible PSSA test questions. Alright, back in the old days, before 1982, pennies were 95% copper and only 5% zinc. Today, they're almost all zinc with a thin, shiny copper coating on there. So we're going to be looking at figuring out some interesting things about pennies based upon the changes and differences. So step one, make sure your balance is balanced. Make sure that if your balance is not balanced, you use the adjustment knob to balance it. Step two, it says use the pennies and the balance to fill in the data chart. So let's take a look at it. Okay, your data chart looks like this. Each person will need to fill one in. And you will be determining the mass of the combination of old and new pennies. So you'll be starting off with 20 new pennies and no old pennies. So let me show you how to go about doing that. Okay, your jar contains 20 new pennies and 20 old pennies. So the first thing you need to do is separate them and get them into two columns. Let's do that. Okay, after dumping out the jar of pennies, I make a column of 20 old and 20 new pennies. And so the first thing you need is no old pennies and 20 new pennies. So we'll put the 20 new pennies on the balance. Alright, so we have the 20 new pennies on the balance, and we've got it measured out, and it looks like it's right about 50 grams. Try to be as accurate as possible. So what we do here is, I'm going to call it exactly 50 grams. I'm not sure what you'll get. Then we have to go to 2 old and 18 new. Now to save time, just take 2 of the new pennies off and grab 2 of the old pennies. Keep them separate so you can remember which is old and which is new. And now you'll see it weighs more because the old pennies have greater mass to them. So you'll go ahead and get your mass for that. And once you get your mass for that, you'll then record that in your data chart. And then you will remove 2 more new pennies, 1, 2, and put in 2 more old pennies. And you'll keep doing that until you get down that you have 20 old and no new. So get all that data. Alrighty, so now I have all my data of what the weight or mass is for all the possible combinations of pennies you were asked. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to do something that's very hard to do. Inside these film canisters, you'll get 3 of them when you tell me it's time, there are 20 pennies. I might have 3 old and 17 new or any combination. And your job is to figure out, without opening this, what is the combination of old and new pennies. That's pretty tricky, and if you can do that, you're pretty slick. So you look at your sample number. This is number 22. So you would put that down. You would get the total mass. So we would just very simply weigh the can. So we have to get all the pennies off of there. Let's get them off of the balance. We put that on, and we determine the mass of that and get whatever the mass of that can is. So let's say the total mass of the can is about, let's say 60 grams. Then I need the can mass, how much this plastic can weighs, and it's written right on there, 6.7 grams. Then, using the miracle of subtraction, you'll figure out what the pennies must weigh. So, if the pennies in the can weigh 60 and the can weighs 6.7, then we see that it must be 53.3. You subtract that from that, and that tells you how much the pennies weigh. And now we know. All right, we will then continue doing that for the other 2. So you get the information for the other 2 cans, and now you've got 3 you're going to be guessing. And now you have to figure out how many old and how many new there are, and that's where extrapolation comes. All right, we went ahead and made a nice chart for you, your graph chart. So all you have to do is plot your points. So let's take a look at these. So now I'm at 16 new and 4 old. So I look over here, there's 16 new, 4 old. The mass is 52.5. So I simply go to 52.5 and 16 and 4 and make a dot there. So keep plotting your points. So once we have all the points plotted, we then take our ruler and we connect the dots to make a line, thus called the line graph. All right, now that we have our line graph made, there it is, we can now use this to extrapolate or guess what the combination of pennies would be in the mystery can. So let's look at the first one. So I came up with a mass of 53.3. So to extrapolate, we now go on the mass side. We find 53.3, which would be just about here. We then make a little mark there. And then we are going to draw a line over until it strikes the extrapolation line. So we drew our line over. Then we're going to draw a line down till it strikes our new and old x-axis. So let's do that. Alright, so now I have our line there, and now we have to do some reading of our scale. It looks like it's about halfway between the 16 and 14 new, so I'd be guessing 15 new. Halfway between the 4 and 6 old, so I'd be guessing it was 15 and 5. So I double check for sure it's 15 new and 5 old, and that is my guess as to what the ratio of pennies are in that mystery can. Do not open the can or you will lose your points for cheating. So then do the same thing with your other two mystery cans. When you have those figured out, you call the teacher over, and using the rubric will give you a grade on this lab quiz. If you do a great job, perfect job, you will pick up extra credit. All right, folks, good luck and get started.